Hi math friends, today we're looking at linear pairs and vertical angles. So let's start with linear pairs. Here's some examples and non-examples. A linear pair right here is formed by angles 1 and angle 2. In this one, angle 1 and angle 2 do form a linear pair. In this column on the right here, angle 3 and 4 do not form a linear pair. So angle 3 and angle 4, they're not forming a linear pair. So what's special about linear pairs is that they're adjacent and they're forming an angle. So here we got angle 1 and 2 forming an angle. Here, 3 and 4, they're kind of next to each other, but they're not adjacent angles as well. Over here, these are diagonal from each other. Those aren't adjacent or next to each other as well. All right? So we want to think of two angles that form one angle and are also adjacent angles. So very similar to adjacent angles. And let's look at some examples here too. Looking at this diagram, we're going to say name the linear pairs. So I want to look at ones that are right next to each other that are going to form together. So angle 1 and 3. So I could say angle 1 and angle 3. We could also look at another pair here. Let's go ahead and make that green. So let's look at another pair. We'll go 1 and 4 we could connect because they're right next to each other there on the same line. So I could also say angle 1 and angle 4. And I like to just like keep going around. I like to use different colors here with geometry because sometimes we get, when we mark this up with pencil or pen, we get kind of confused and there's too many markings and then we might miss something, we might do something twice. So it might help to use colors here too. So this one we'd say angle 4 and angle 2. And remember, if you want to for these, you could use the symbols angle 4 and angle 2. I'm choosing to type here and I don't have these angle symbols necessarily, so you could do that. You could do this instead. You don't have to write the word angle each time. All right, let's look at one more, I think, 2 and 3. And I think that should be all of them for this diagram. We'll check through one more time as well. Let's say angle 2 and angle 3. All right, so when I'm checking through again, like I said, I used colors here. So 3 and 1, and I just kept going around. 1 and 4, 4 and 2, 2 and 3. And if I can continue back around for linear pairs, I would go back to 3 and 1. So these are the 4 possible answers here when I'm naming the linear pairs. All right, now let's look at vertical angles. So left column here, these are vertical angles. Right column, these are not. So these are vertical angles, and these are vertical angles. These are not, and these are not. So I'm noticing that these are like opposite each other, like diagonal. And I'm noticing here, these are diagonal from each other, kind of, but these are not. These are definitely not. So one distinction here is that I have two lines intersecting. And over here, this line, and then these right here, these are two rays actually. If this was a line, it would keep going straight. But these are actually two rays. So right here, we don't have two lines intersecting. Right here, I do have two lines intersecting, but they're not diagonal from each other. All right, so adjacent angles, so we look at two lines intersecting. And we think of the angles as being diagonal from each other. What we have, our other big takeaway from this is that vertical angles are congruent which means that they are the exact same. If angle 1 is 89 degrees, angle 2 is 89 degrees. If angle 1 down here is 110 degrees, then angle 2 is also 110 degrees. They're congruent. They're the same measure. So let's look at this one, name the vertical angles. First, we'll check to see that we have two lines intersecting here. So I'm going to go ahead and color code these a little bit. Let's just check on these. We have this red line. Okay, that looks good. Then we have this line. All right, that looks good. So from what we saw there in that other example, we should say the ones that are diagonal are. So I'm going to use some different colors to denote these now. So angle 1 and angle 3 should be vertical angles here. So I'll say angle, I wanted to type that in purple. Angle 1 and angle 3. And then look again at the diagram. We still have another pair of angles here. We have 4 and 2. Remember, you could use the symbol for that, but I'm typing, so I'm going to type the whole word. Angle 4 and angle 2. And then let's check to make sure that we don't have any others. These have to be diagonal from each other or straight across from each other. I don't see any others that could possibly work here. So we're done. There's only 2 pairs of vertical angles here.